Hi Chefeteers, I'm Chef Nakia and I want you to be more confident in the kitchen and with batch cooking to make this holiday season the most stress-free yet. Today we'll be talking about what batch cooking is, how to plan it into your weekly meal plan, some ideas and examples to get you excited to put this into practice, and ways to make sure that you don't get bored with the meals that you did batch cook. I'm so excited to be sharing this with you, especially in this season, because it can get so crazy and busy, hectic, but I wanna make sure that you still feel confident in the kitchen, in your kitchen, and in cooking yourself some delicious home-cooked meals. Batch cooking can be a great way to make sure that you still have quick and convenient but still home-cooked meals. You can stock your fridge and freezer with components of these batch cooked meals, or like the entire meal, so that amongst all of the extra like errands and holiday parties and recitals and obligations, you can eat a delicious home-cooked meal that's just as easy as reheating it. And then the other reason why I think that this is such a great time to be talking about batch cooking is that batch cooked meals can be really fun and easy to share with others, whether that's friends or neighbors, family members, community members, like work events, any type of potluck, or people in need. Batch cooking can really make it easy to cook for large groups of people. Batch cooking as being a really great like prepping for the holidays strategy and those busy days within the holidays season. But what if you live in the Denver area and you are traveling for the holidays? Do I have a solution for that? Of course I do. Of course I do, you guys. I call it my home from the holidays meal plan and grocery delivery package. So the idea is that day that you get home from traveling, you're exhausted, you've probably been either eating out with family or eating some like heavier family meals together, and it's been delicious and amazing and wonderful, but now that you're home, you might be even more incentivized to just like stay at home and eat at home. And sometimes it's kind of hard to like get to the grocery store to restock your kitchen and fridge after traveling. So that's where I come in. I have put together a meal plan of a few light and easy meals that will help get you through those first few days, like 4 or 5 days after traveling, so you can like unpack, decompress, kind of get your feet back under you while still having really delicious, easy meals at home. So the meal plan includes a winter salad, some rotisserie chicken street tacos, or if that doesn't really sound good to you, chicken pesto pasta, and then a crock pot soup recipe, which that's a great one to eat on for a couple different meals. And then I will also bring you some ingredients for your choice of a version of overnight oats. That way you have those quick, easy, but still nutritious breakfasts to like get you going for the morning. And then these other meals can definitely be used interchangeably between lunch and dinner. If this is something that sounds like a lifesaver to you, or a time saver, a stress saver to you for getting home from the holiday seasons, and you live in the Denver, especially like South Denver area, go ahead and there's a link in the description box below. So you can head over there and book your date and time. Also, if you know somebody in the Denver area, so maybe you don't live here, but you are looking for a gift for somebody, you can also go ahead and just put that in the notes, and that way I can make sure that I communicate with the person actually receiving the gift. And of course, I'll work with you on the timing of that. But I'm actually offering this all through the rest of November, December, and January. What is batch cooking? Let's just start there. It's what you're doing when you intentionally cook something to ensure that there will be leftovers. So this could be making like a huge pot of soup, or it could be taking a recipe that you have that makes enough for like 2 or 4 people or however many you're cooking for in your family, and doubling it or tripling it, scaling it up to intentionally make sure that there will be leftovers of that meal. And then the third way to batch cook is to make larger portions of components of meals and then mix and match those together to create a few different meals. And you might hear this and think, like, but what if I get bored eating the same stuff over and over again? Be sure to stay tuned, because later in the video I am going to talk about 3 main ways that you can make sure that you aren't going to be getting bored eating the same things over and over again, like strategies that you can use to make sure that these meals continue being exciting to you. And of course, another reason why I especially love batch cooking is because it will help you reduce your food waste. And many ways batch cooking can help you reduce your food waste. One of those ways is by reducing the leftover parts of ingredients that you have left over. So for example, if you are making a soup and you only need to use half of a can of beans, now you're gonna have half a can left over that you kind of need to decide how you're going to use it. Or half of a butternut squash left over. Or, you know, the asparagus bundles that usually is about 1 pound of asparagus. Sometimes that can be a bit too much, especially if you're only cooking for like 1 or 2 people. So by cooking big batch meals, you can like make sure that you scale the recipe so that you're using that entire can of beans or that entire bundle of asparagus. Therefore, you don't have those leftover parts that you need to figure out, okay, what other meal can I eat this in? Now, I love helping my clients find ways to eat up those parts and pieces. So, you know, if you've worked with me, I'm always sending you more and more meal ideas for how to eat those up. But let's be honest, especially during the holiday season with everything else that is expected of us, our mental capacity is probably on some other stuff, and so the enthusiasm to find creative ways to eat up the rest of those leftover ingredients probably isn't quite at the peak level that it might be throughout other times of the year. So batch cooking during the holiday season can really be a nice way to like save some of that mental capacity. All right, now number 2 is if you are eating home cooked meals more, that just naturally means you're going to be eating out less. Like ordering less takeout and going out to the restaurant, to like restaurants less often. And I don't know about you, but I find a lot of restaurants, the portions tend to be a little bit larger than maybe what I can comfortably eat in one sitting. So I tend to have meal leftovers fairly frequently. So if we are batch cooking to ensure that we're setting ourselves up with delicious home cooked meals, we won't feel as much of that like uncertainty around, oh, when am I gonna end up eating these restaurant leftovers? And the last way that batch cooking can help us reduce our food waste, if you have batch cooked meals at home, you have more flexibility and less of like a ticking time clock on needing to cook or eat that produce before it goes bad. Like if you've already taken that fresh produce that has a pretty short shelf life and cooked it into a meal that you can then freeze, now that's gonna have a much longer shelf life than that fresh produce would have had beforehand. So how do you plan your batch cooking? Well, if you want to cook components of meals and then mix and match those together, you're gonna start by choosing 1 or 2, maybe even 3 proteins. It's like slow cooked pork. You can buy rotisserie chicken already cooked. You could grill up some sausages. You could bake some salmon or simmer up some beans or lentils. Also, if you love tofu, you could prepare that in your favorite way, whether it's like pan fried or baked, or saute some mushrooms. And before you cook these proteins, I recommend that you think about, okay, for this whole week of meals that I'm going to be using this protein in, do I want to focus on any certain type of global cuisine inspiration? Or do I want these proteins to fit into several different flavor styles? If you do want to lean into a certain cuisine style, so maybe you're going to do Tex-Mex and Mexican food, Southwest style flavors, then you can go ahead and season that protein with like cumin and coriander and chili powder, oregano, and whatever other spices you think fit with your meals specifically the best. If you want your meals to have more of a variety of flavor influences, then you can cook that protein to be a little bit more of a chameleon in flavor, and therefore you can use like salt, pepper, garlic, onion, maybe as the base seasonings for those. And then that way you don't have to worry about any of your flavor combinations contradicting each other and not playing along well. Step 2 is to choose your grains. I would say 1 to 2 grains typically. These will include rice, and yes, that includes like long grain white rice, wild rice, brown rice, basmati rice, Thai jasmine rice, any kind of rice. Farro, pearl couscous, like traditional couscous, barley, pasta, and pasta can include anywhere from spaghetti or fettuccine style noodles to your rotini or rigatoni or farfalle. Also like orzo, or you can even do like a sweet potato orzo, or quinoa, bulgur, or polenta. Once you've decided which grains that you do want to include, then you can figure out which grains you want to cook like large batches of, and which you may want to wait and just simmer those the day that you eat them. For example, like traditional small couscous is going to cook very quickly. So you could easily have all of the other components of your meal pre-cooked, and then as you are reheating those, you can just steam that couscous fresh, and it's not going to take you any longer. Maybe you cook a large batch of rice at the beginning of the week, and then later throughout the week you also go ahead and boil up some pasta fresh for one meal. And then third, you are going to choose some vegetables to roast or cook or steam or grill, however you want to cook those. You're gonna choose some vegetables, though, is the important part. I typically like choosing at least 4 or 5 of these. I do kind of feel like the vegetables are almost a scenario where the limit does not exist, but to be cognizant of how much we're buying, how much we're really trying to get through, I think 4 to 5 is probably a pretty good target. So now here we are in the late autumn and then going into winter produce time. So I'm gonna read off a list of fall and winter produce for you. These are some of the vegetables that I really, really enjoy cooking with in the winter time. Sweet potato, turnips, red onion, broccoli, parsnips, carrots, butternut squash, potatoes, kale, and beets. And I will say that as far as roasting a sheet pan of veggies together, I would love to do sweet potato, turnips, red onion, broccoli, parsnips, maybe carrots in there also. Just a sheet pan of roasted veggies, so delicious, and it's gonna pair with a lot of different things that you want to eat throughout the week. This can also be an especially good time of year to rely on those frozen veggie blends in the freezer aisle, right? There's a lot of different ones. And then to help you bring those flavors and those different components together, this is where we get into the sauces and garnishes. And this is really where you can help yourself to make each meal that you make out of these different components a little bit different. So there are endless amounts of sauces that you can use, like pasta sauces, like tomato sauce and pesto and Alfredo, or you can use Latin American style sauces, like a mole or chimichurri, all kinds of different salsas, a red enchilada sauce, a green chili sauce, ají, and you have a whole world of East Asian style sauces like teriyaki or hoisin, fish sauce, gochujang, plum sauces, ginger-based sauces, Thai curries, and then you have Indian curries, just like endless sauce options. And a lot of sauces you can make yourself, or you can find them in the store, like bottles of pre-made sauces. So you have a lot of flexibility with those sauces. And then garnishes would be like those little extra touches that you kind of just sprinkle on at the end. This could be like sliced green onion, your nuts and seeds, and if you want to take that up a level, you can like subtly toast any of your nuts and seeds. You've got cheeses, things like olives or capers or pickled items. Something as simple as citrus zest can really like elevate your dish. And then we've got like chips and crackers and those kinds of things you could like crumble on top of your dish for a little extra saltiness or crunch. And then fruit, whether it be fresh fruit or dried fruit. A lot of times having a little bit of like a sweet and fruity flavor can really bring a dish to life. Now, a few years ago, I made a video about how to plan a meal, which is a lot of this type of information again, but going more in depth. So I will link that up here somewhere. And so if this is something you're interested in, you can go much deeper in that. But to relate this to batch cooking specifically, you'll take the advice from that video and just double, triple, or quadruple the amounts that you're going to make. Each of those top 3 components of like the protein, the grain, and the vegetable. And then make sure that those components' flavors will pair well together. And if you are more of a beginner at this, you can really rely on that sauce element carrying most of the flavor complexity. So you can stick to more simple seasonings of, like I said before, like garlic, onion, like a pepper blend, so a little bit of white pepper, a little bit of black pepper, and salt to season your food to make sure that it does have good flavor in and of itself, but then that sauce will help create a little bit more interest to your dish in general. And then as you get more comfortable and confident with seasoning food and with which flavors pair well together, then you can have a lot more fun seasoning each of those components in ways that you know will end up complementing each other in the final meal. Now, a few more examples of big batch meals that are great for this batch style cooking include soups, crockpot soups, or stovetop soups. It doesn't really matter. Their soups are always going to be really great big batch meals. Soups are usually really easy to freeze also. They're going to reheat really well. Casseroles are another big group of dishes that are great for batch cooking. It doesn't really take much more time or effort to make like a large pan or 2 pans of enchiladas or pizza casserole or lasagna than just making a smaller portion. So within casseroles, you kind of have like the pasta-based casseroles, potato-based casseroles. You have your, I would say like enchilada-based is like a whole type of casserole, because I could probably give you like 3 dozen different versions of an enchilada casserole if you needed me to. And if that's something you really want, let me know, and then maybe I'll make it into a short or something. But yes, just endless styles of casseroles, so you won't necessarily get bored with eating casserole after casserole, because you could journey your way through all the different types of casseroles. And 1 pan meals and 1 pot meals are also great batch cooking options. So I have a recipe called like 1 pan chicken and veggies. So you put little like chicken breasts in the pan and then veggies around it, like broccoli and potatoes and onion. I think I have carrots in there too. And then you cook it all together. And it doesn't have to be in a pan that goes in the oven. It can also be a pot that it goes on the stove. But the idea is you can put your protein in there and your vegetables in there. Again, your starch might need to still be separate. It kind of depends on exactly what you're doing. but you can just kind of cook it all together, and then you have this large amount of food. And again, it's great to portion into different meals or eat some of it right now, freeze some of it for later. And bonus, there's less dishes to be done. And then lastly, our breakfasts. I think that breakfast is sometimes a forgotten meal of the day, but it is really one that's pretty easy to batch cook. And especially breakfasts like overnight oats or cinnamon rolls. You could do like a stone fruit breakfast casserole type thing with like biscuits and stone fruits. You can just make a large tray of biscuits and pair that with gravy, or if you aren't a big gravy fan, like I'm not a huge like sausage gravy fan, you can do chorizo and pico de gallo with those biscuits also. I know it might sound a little bit weird if you haven't done it, but try it once and then tell me it's not delicious, okay? So definitely don't skip breakfast, and don't skip trying to fit breakfast into this batch cooking style of being prepared. To round out the meal, I'm going to end with 3 ways that I want to share with you to avoid getting bored with this batch cooking, because I can completely understand if you hear a lot of this and you think, well, that just sounds like I'm going to be eating the same thing over and over, and I can't stand that. What that's really gonna do is make me not wanna eat at home anymore because I'm gonna get so bored that I'm gonna be like dying to go out and finding excuses to go out and eat something different. So I've got 3 ideas to make sure that you don't get bored. Number 1 is freezing everything in portions. So if you do make a large casserole, cut it into thirds or quarters or whatever size you think realistically is the size that you and your family are going to eat on a day. And that way you don't have to thaw the entire casserole and then make yourself eat that whole casserole all at the same time. You can just thaw enough for one night, and then maybe you wait another week or 10 days before eating it again. Number 2 is with your sauces and your garnishes. For the most part, I would recommend not adding a sauce to your meal until like the night that you're eating it. That way you can easily mix up the sauce the next day. So even if you're eating almost the same meal 2 days in a row, you can add 2 different sauces that are gonna be dramatically different, and it should make that meal feel pretty different. The garnishes come into play here too by really like supporting the flavor and interest of the sauce. So for example, you might be using a barbecue sauce one evening, and you could add some like fruit, like pineapple and avocado with that meal. So it's gonna be like barbecue and sweet and then creaminess from the avocado. And then the next night you could use like a teriyaki sauce, which is, you know, kind of an East Asian barbecue sort of thing. So it's probably gonna go well with those components that you've already decided go well with the barbecue style sauce. And then with that, you can put some fresh cilantro on top, along with maybe some fresh sliced cabbage and peanuts if you're not allergic to peanuts. And so it's gonna really help make the most of that teriyaki sauce and those flavors, and those are gonna feel like significantly different meals and different flavor profiles to you. And then third is repurposing your basics. So in repurposing your basics, you're really going to take those meal components and continue mixing and matching them. And you can even take like a casserole style meal, and you might be able to take one of those other meal components and add it to it. So for example, if you do like a cheesy potato bake as one meal, then you can add some slow cooked pork to that, and then maybe also a garden salad. Chefeteers, please let me know what questions you have in the comments, and if you would like any help figuring out what your batch cooking meal plan for the upcoming couple weeks is going to be, let me know. I would love to help you out with that. I hope that you have a lovely holiday season and you cook some really delicious and joyful food soon. Thank you so much, Chefeteers.